First street layout of Wenonah. This was done by a fellow by the name of William Frederick Allen, who worked for the West Jersey Railroad. It consisted of about 20 blocks bounded by Jefferson, Elm, Marion, and Cedar, so it was a lot smaller than what we have now. First houses in Wenonah. There are really three of them that have been identified as the first three actually built in Wenonah. There were some that were here before Wenonah, but these are the first three. Andrew Carey built a house. Actually, Andrew Carey, I believe, is the fellow that made this ship over here. But this house is at the corner of Poplar and Clinton, 11 North Clinton Avenue today. The second of the three first houses was Dr. George Bailey house at the corner of Clinton and Mantua. I think you can recognize that one. George Bailey is one of the founding fathers of Wenonah. Another one of the founding fathers, Thomas Sinnott, built a house, and this is the only picture I've been able to find kind of in the background. This is the 4th of July celebration. This house is at the corner of Clinton and Mantua, northeast corner. Nobody's ever, I don't think anybody in this room has seen this house. It hasn't been there since 1927, but it was replaced. The library is in that spot right now. House was torn down, built the library. Yes, Wenonah had a hotel. First hotel was the Wenonah House. This was on Clinton Avenue, directly across from our park. It had 40 rooms. There was actually a boardwalk from the hotel to the train station. Not like a boardwalk down Ocean City. It's boards in the ground. It closed in 4th of July celebration, the big day in Wenonah. Was in 1872. This is actually the program. You probably can't read that, but I point out a couple things. Back in 1872, they really knew how to celebrate. It started at 5 a.m. and they went to 11:30 p.m., 18 and a half hours. Party animals. They also liked noise. 5 a.m., there's a 13-gun salute. Noontime, there's another 13-gun salute. And then from 8:30 to 10 p.m., there were rockets and fireworks. And they also had meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then another snack at 10 p.m. The first store in Wenonah was at the corner of Mantua and West, right over there, where the yoga studio is. It was the Benjamin Packer store. That opened in 1872. The first industry in Wenonah was actually a cannery located on the north side of Mantua Avenue near Mantua Creek. They canned primarily tomatoes, and they actually had a capacity of 250,000 cans of tomatoes in a season. And they were one of 3 canning factories in Gloucester County. Some firefighting first. This is Wenonah's first piece of firefighting equipment. Even had a name. They called it Meershanks. It was basically a wood cart with 500 feet of hose. Firehouse was built a little later. Looks fairly familiar. First car in Wenonah was a 1900 locomobile. I understand that was like a 2-cylinder steam-driven vehicle. And it was actually won by Mrs. Frances Bosler, winner of a contest sponsored by the Philadelphia Inquirer. Puzzle contest. You had to solve puzzles. She had her name picked out and she drove a car back to Wenonah. First one in town. Probably didn't even have a license. Okay, of course, with cars coming into town, there was concern over the pedestrians and also concern over the safety of the horses that were still the predominant mode of transportation at the time. First speed limit sign in Wenonah. This is courtesy of Deb Mix. Marjorie Lentz gave her this sign. She said it was actually located on Marion Avenue, which is probably a good place for a speed limit. not very specific. I don't know if they had any speedometers in the cars. Okay, the first community cleanup day. We have a couple events coming up. On May 11th, I think, is a community cleanup day. Well, the first one was back in 1918. Mayor C. Fowler Klein made a proclamation asking everybody to clean up their own yards. Not the public grounds, but individual yards, and the borough would come around and pick up all the trash they were able to accumulate. Porch Fest, I think, is on May 18th of this year. We say this is the third annual Porch Fest, but actually back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, Stephen Green had folks from the Philadelphia Opera Company come over to his house and perform on the porch. So I've assigned this as the first one in Wenonah. This was Stephen Green's house at the time he lived here. This is what it looks like now. It's actually two houses. A fire in the 20s destroyed part of the house, so they made two houses out of it. Some other firsts. First church, 1873. First water tower, 1894. Looked like that. It was located in the same general area. It was just strictly a pipe sticking, not quite as pretty as the one we have now, but there's no cell antennas on it. Actually, this is the way I remember it from the 60s. It was like this. And we didn't have house numbers till 1924, and 1925 was the first road was paved, so that 1900 locomobile did not have any pavement to ride on. Okay, let's talk about some links, some fun facts about links between Wenonah and some famous people and institutions. Remember William Frederick Allen? He's the fellow who laid out the street layout for Wenonah, the first layout. He actually created standard time and time zones that are still in use. He's the one that came up with that idea. So we can say Wenonah is linked to standard time and time zones. This is a picture of the, at the time it was the Methodist Episcopal Church on the corner of Clinton and Willow. Looks something like that. It was built in 1883 and it took a few years for construction. They invited this fella, Bishop Matthew Simpson from Philadelphia, to set the cornerstone when they laid the cornerstone. He was given a trowel, engraved trowel, some kind words on it. That trowel ended up in the Smithsonian Institute, and that's where it is now. So Wenonah is linked to the Smithsonian Institute. The next one's more along the lines of, 6 degrees for Kevin Bacon type of thing. Wenonah is linked to Abraham Lincoln. Reason being, Bishop Simpson was a personal friend of Abraham Lincoln and an advisor, and actually gave the sermon at Lincoln's funeral. So Wenonah really is linked to Honest Abe. Another president, Wenonah is linked to Woodrow Wilson. He came to Wenonah, addressed the cadets at the Wenonah Military Academy in 1910. At the time, he wasn't president, but a little after that, he became president. Another president, Teddy Roosevelt, delivered a speech in Wenonah Park in 1912. And I believe this is actually a photograph of him giving that talk. I don't know if everybody recognizes this name. I see some blank faces, but Enrico Caruso was probably the most famous tenor in the early 1900s. He actually performed at the Tea House on Comey's property. So we can say Wenonah is linked to Caruso. Wenonah is linked to the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. This fellow, Herb Pennock, is considered one of the greatest left-handed pitchers of all time. He played on perhaps the greatest team of all time, the 1927 Yankees, with Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1948. And part of this long tribute to Herb, among rare few who made jump from prep school to majors. Herb Pennock went to the Wenonah Military Academy in school year of 1910 to 1911. He was recruited right out of the military academy before he graduated, went to the major leagues, never pitched in the minors. So Wenonah is certainly linked to the Baseball Hall of Fame. We're linked to President Herbert Hoover. Wenonah Military Academy had a very successful football season one year. They were invited up to the White House to meet the president. This is a picture when they went there in 1930. Groucho Marx. Some of you have heard of Groucho Marx, right? One of the Marx brothers. Groucho had a sister-in-law who lived in Wenonah, lived at 4 East Willow. And Groucho would come here occasionally to visit his sister-in-law. And the story goes that every time he came to town, he took the kids to the drugstore for ice cream. Another president, Ronald Reagan. You might recall after Reagan left office, he fell off a horse and did some damage to his brain. Well, the person who operated on that was Dr. Thorolf's son. He operated in 1989. He was born in Wenonah, went to Wenonah School, graduated from Woodbury at the time. So that's 5 presidents that Wenonahs can be linked to. That's over 10% of all the presidents Wenonah has a connection to. NASA. Stephen Squires was the principal investigator for the Mars exploration mission. Stephen grew up in Wenonah. He went to Wenonah School, graduated from Gateway. He was also the first hometown legend, I think back in 2004 for Wenonah. So we linked to Nassau. Also linked to the Academy Awards. Stephen Squires' younger brother, Timothy Squires, wasn't going to be outdone, so he got nominated twice for an Academy Award in Best Achievement in Film Editing. I think the film's Life of Pi, yeah. Got it. So Wenonah's linked to the Academy Awards. Okay, let's shift to houses. I think everybody recognizes this house in the corner of Cherry and West, right? It's certainly the oldest house in Wenonah. Older than yours, Mark. Constructed sometime before 1763. I don't think we can place an exact date on it, but it was built as a tavern, which is kind of ironic for Wenonah. We had a tavern here. It also was a stop when a stagecoach stop. Stagecoach went from Camden, swung down to Cape May, stopped right here at the tavern in the future Wenonah. And it was used by the militia during the Revolutionary War. Next house, 8 Southwest Avenue. Everybody recognizes that one. That was Wenonah's first train station. Notice it was on the opposite side of the tracks at the time. When the new train station was built, that house was moved over to where it is right now. It became a bakery, a blacksmith shop, and then a private residence. 5 North Clinton Avenue was the first church built in Wenonah. It was the first Presbyterian church. Hard to see the resemblance here, but I'm sure this one's true. There was an annex built next to that 10 years later for Sunday school. 6 North Marion. You recognize this one, Gustavo, right? Okay, right across the street. That was our first school building. Opened in 1878. You can notice this shot is probably taken from Clinton to the back. I don't know why it was taken to the back, but it's the only photo we have. Notice the big bell on the top of the school. Well, the reports are there were a lot of complaints from the neighbors at the time. The bell, I don't know how many, 1878, and probably 100 people in town, but they were complaining. It's too loud. Okay, when the school building opened up on Clinton Avenue, the stone school building, a fellow by the name of Joe Noblet bought the house or the building. And they used it primarily for social events in Wenonah. Then the YMCA took it over in 1913, Legion Hall, 1922. Then it became a private residence in 1984. And I think, Deb, that's you.
Well, we never turned it into a residence.
No, but you were the first private owner. Okay.
I guess we were.
Okay. Okay, this is, I don't know if you recognize this one. 101 South Marion is right at the corner of Marion and Cherry. That was the Wenonah Tea Room back in the 30s. And I think tea room is kind of a misnomer because they had steaks and chops at all times, specials, 60 cents, 70 cents, and 85 cents at the time.
Steak and chops.
I don't know if you got a steak for 85 cents, but got something. Now this is an interesting one, 7 South Marion, so it's the next block towards Mantua Avenue. Anybody recognize this house? Yeah, Brad lived there. That house was built by a fellow by the name of Dr. Hamilton Mason. He used it for a house, and he also used it for his laboratory. And we have a whole box of stuff from Dr. Mason that was in the house. I have a few of them up here you can take a look at. But he was dabbled in a lot of different things. We have boxes and boxes of, I call them recipes, or really, I guess, formulations for different types of products. These are skin lotions, gives you the proportions to put in it. So if anybody's interested, you can give it a shot. But he also had the main products where he had nice PR material. Here's one for, I think it's focused on athletes. Something mighty good for your muscles, good smelling stuff from the great outdoors. The name Bullpine, though, is kind of rough. But I guess it was like a fragrant Bengay or something. Another one here, right in Wenonah, formulated a laxative. Real joy in living is possible only when the stomach, liver, kidneys, and bowels are working properly. And the formulation's probably in one of these books. And lastly, he had a product called Double Duty, which was like the fountain of youth, I guess. To swift away the old feelings away and make you think youthful things. The main ingredient in this was mate. I'm sure you know what that is, Elaine. It's a South American plant that is very high in caffeine, very high in tannins. Mate, yeah. And so those were his three main products. Moving on to this one, which very familiar, on 8 West Mantua Avenue. Remember that schoolhouse, that Sunday school? It was moved when the new Presbyterian Church opened, I think in 1904. That building was moved over here to Mantua Avenue. And it was the first library in Wenonah. It was the first Lutheran church in Wenonah. And it was the first Tricia Sloan dance studio. And then it was a photography studio and a yoga studio. There may have been a few other things in there somewhere. Right down the street here, the duplex at 7 and 9 West Mantua Avenue. This was built by a fellow named Ramson Howard back in 1873. And it had 3 floors, and each floor ended up being used for a different purpose. The second floor was used for school before the school building was built in Marion. For a couple of years, they went to the second floor and had class in this building. The third floor was a YMCA for several years. The first floor, Wenzel, I think it's Walter Wenzel, had a store on the first floor, was here for a few decades, and they specialized in a lot of things. But in 1913, when some of the folks might have gone to Dr. Wenzel, actually, that was his son. But in 1913, he, on the right side, built an ice cream parlor, which turned out to be the first ice cream parlor in South Jersey. And he also had a gas pump out front. Only sold gas Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, but it was 22 cents, so you can plan right. And then it became private residences. This house is on Mantua, north side, between Jefferson and Lincoln. I know ever since I moved here, I always wondered, there's a big picture window on one side, 2 front doors, what's going on here, type thing. And never knew, but then I talked to Cindy Norris. Her grandfather owned this house for a while. And she explained everything. In the backyard, there's a car dealership and a service center out in the back. This portion of the house was their showroom and office building. And they lived on the other side. So Cindy's father grew up in that house. And they get a good price on used cars, $50 for a Buick Roadster. Is that a good deal, Gene? Okay, lastly, not really a house, but a familiar building, which has probably had more uses than any other building in town. It started out as a railroad ticket. West Jersey used this as their ticket office. Then it became a Legion Hall for a while. There's a picture of this is post 192. I guess their first stomping grounds. It was a barbershop, tax office, police headquarters, a gift shop, a florist, and now it's a nutcracker shop. And again, there's probably a few others that I couldn't locate. Okay, switching over to businesses. I think most people don't consider Wenonah to be a business-centric type of town. But we have, over the years, there have been actually quite a few business establishments in town. This is a shot of Clark's store in the 1800s. This was at 3 East Mantua, so it's where the nail salon is right now. But we've had a drugstore, dry cleaners, another ice cream parlor, a woman's shoe store, a barber shop, a shoe repair store, went on a quality shop. Seemed to be like a mix of a drugstore and a clothing store. A service center for cars, of course a grocery store. We had a lumber yard. We had a hardware store. We had a cement products company in Wenonah at one time. Touching on a few specific ones, Wenonah Inn. Wenonah not only had one hotel, they had 2. The Wenonah Inn was built in the same spot the Wenonah House was built in 1894. It was much larger. It could accommodate 150 guests. Had a lot of amenities, a barber shop, laundry, amusement hall, billiard, bowling alley. Later, that became the Wenonah Military Academy. which is our connection to the Baseball Hall of Fame. That's where Herb Pennock went to school. Had a peak enrollment of 200. Actually, was quite well thought of nationally. Became known as the West Point of South Jersey. And really, this is the block bounded by Clinton, Mantua, consumed most of the entire block. The George Bailey House was here and the house next to it, but the rest of it was all Wenonah Military Academy. It had 2 dorms, a main building, large main building, which was the Wenonah Inn converted into rooms for students and so forth. They had a lab next to it, which was the bowling alley from the Wenonah Inn, and a large drill hall, gymnasium drill hall at the corner. Another location that saw a few different industries, really, a bottling plant, a Pan American bottling company constructed a building along south of Cedar, 6,000 square feet, 2-story masonry building. And guess who the biggest stockholder was? Hamilton Mason from over in Marion. He formulated another drink. He converted his medicinal drink into a beverage which he claimed was the most invigorating beverage imaginable. And it was called Mautine. We actually have one bottle that still has the label on it from the archives. Looks a lot bigger there. That lasted for a few years. Another occupant of that building came along, New Jersey Tex Company. And what did they do? They were a soap manufacturer. Their soap was called Tex. A couple of interesting. It was thousands of women used it. No men, just women. And it cleaned clothes, floors, dishes without effort. Wouldn't it be great to have a product you can use for your dishes and you do your laundry with? Just have one box. It didn't last long, 3 years. And then the building sat vacant for quite a while. This is actually a picture, the only picture I could find of the building. And this was after a fire in 1969 that you can see charred the outside a little bit. But 2-story masonry building. A pharmaceutical company came in 1948, purchased the building. Most locals call it the pill factory.
Where was it?
It was Clark and Clark. Yeah, I think most people know it as the pill factory.
Where was it?
It was the same place. It was south of Cedar and west. Just go down. It's not there anymore. There was another fire in 1971 that raised it. I think they were both arson. You know, the building's not there. There's no traces of it, but there probably are some bottles of pills somewhere.
I would like to fact check it sometime. There's rumors that in our basement, people from the pill factory were manufacturing pills in our basement.
They manufactured bubble gum. I'm not bubble gum, but some sort of gum. And their main product was something called Clarkotabs. Was for weight loss, weight control. And you notice the main ingredient to both products was amphetamine in Wenonah. And they claimed, the literature says they could produce 2 million Clarkotabs per day in this factory. There's bound to be some of those laying around if they... Wenonah had a gas station built in 1936. This was right in the corner over there where the first store in Wenonah is located. Gas Sinclair station. I think it was always a Sinclair station. Not there anymore. Wenonah has had at least 4 riding stables in town in various locations. So horseback riding was very popular at one time. Wenonah had a roller skating rink. How many people knew that? Okay. It was located, remember that drill hole? Military Academy? Down at the corner? Well, some guy came in and repurposed it a few years after the military academy closed. Roller skating in Wenonah. They were open on Saturday and Mondays, and they were open until 11:30 p.m. A lot of complaints. A lot of complaints, and council listened to their constituents and came out against it. I don't know if it lasted more than a week, but it was there, and skates were cheap. Okay, finally, these are kind of the random ones that didn't seem to fit one of the other categories. A lot of you know, I'm sure, but the train wasn't always where it is now. It came and followed North Jefferson, then kind of swung around the southeast part of town. If you walk the Mantua Creek Trail, Clay Hill, there's a sign there. That's where the trestle was that crossed over the creek. They had a lot of problems with the grade, and I think trains falling off the tracks and stuff like that. So they moved it over, straightened it up, right where it is now. And at one time, we had 60 trains a day coming through Wenonah. Now, how many we have now? What, 3? 2 or 3?
Yeah.
Wenonah Lake once had a diving platform. And you look at probably about 20 foot tall. It's probably about, 4 foot deep there now? They used to harvest ice from Wenonah Lake. Ice, it got 10 to 14 inches thick. Go out there and harvest it and then put it in ice houses. And allegedly it lasted to the summer. They covered the houses, I think they were double walled, and they covered it with sawdust or something to insulate it and hung around. Probably wouldn't want to use it in a drink or something. Okay. In the early 1900s, there's a lot of press about animals in Wenonah. And you read some of the old minutes of council, they occupied a lot of their time with animals. Mostly complaints. These are taken out of papers. Charlie Brose was warned to keep his cow off the sidewalks and his goat at home. Chickens were running wild, devastating the grass in the park. And this Charlie Simpson guy bred Belgian hares at his house at the corner of Jefferson Buttonwood. He had 5,000 rabbits at one time. Okay, Wenonah School. This 1895, the Philadelphia Times sponsored a contest. I think the way it worked was they published ballots in the daily paper for like 10 weeks. And whoever sent in the most ballots, the 2 highest ballot getters won pianos. And it was open in New Jersey to all academies, colleges, private schools, public schools. Well, Wenonah decided to enter. This is 1895. This is 1 year after they moved into the stone building. There was like 100 houses in town, 400 people, including the people living or staying at the Wenonah Inn. They entered, and they had a similar contest in Philadelphia before that one, and the winner submitted 199,000 ballots. This was all Philadelphia schools. Well, Wenonah won this contest. They submitted, let me get the exact number here. It's just amazing. It's like 400,000 ballots. They had a lot of friends. It was the small guy, I guess, the underdog, and they won a piano. The grades of the students that went on to school were published in the paper. How do you like to do that now? Try to do that. everybody in town knew what you got. And this one I took out of a family album. The red line there, that was my aunt.
How'd she do?
Ellen Jordan. She taught at Wenonah School for 40 years. She didn't do very good in the test, though. There was a coffee named Wenonah. A free coffee. I guess if you collected these coupons, kind of like the Halloween or the Thanksgiving turkey at ShopRite, if you got 10 of these coupons, you got a cup, can, it looks like, of Wenonah coffee. Cedar Field, Langston Field, whichever you call it, had a grandstand that held 500 fans. You can see this is a picture of an event, probably a military academy event. It's full. There's another few hundred on the ground. Couldn't fit in the stadium compared to what we have today. Not quite 500. Okay, I'm going to conclude with some facts about Stephen Green, who was one of our founding fathers and just an amazing, amazing person. I think you'll be able to relate to a few of these, at least two of them. He owned the Wenonah Inn and the Wenonah Military Academy. He was responsible for the train station. We're in the train station right now. He cut a deal with West Jersey Railroad that if they built him a new train station for Wenonah, he would build the Wenonah Inn. He built the Methodist Episcopal Church, so he's responsible for the link to the Smithsonian Institute and Abraham Lincoln. He built the first sewer system in Wenonah. He extended Marion Avenue to Bank Bark Bridge. So that's probably the road where the first speed limit sign went. He built the Wenonah Carnation Gardens in 1905. They actually exported plants to Philadelphia. And of course that now is Wenonah Greenhouses. He built Lake Cornelia, which was also named Greens Lake and later Parker's Lake. I'm sure a lot of us have ice skated on that lake. He constructed an athletic field, which was Cedar Field. And he built a golf course in Wenonah. This is physically in Wenonah. It's not the Oak Valley Golf Course. This was a short one. It was 1,300 yards. He built it for the guests at the Wenonah Inn to use.
Where was that?
I've never seen any map that shows it, but I think I believe it went from near Cedar east towards Marion and over towards the Comey property. It was only 1,300 yards, so you couldn't have had it. Wasn't an 18-hole golf course, but I don't know. Maybe somebody's finding golf balls. And this is what Stephen Green looked like back in 1900. And he came back and visited us in October of 23. See the resemblance? So I hope you enjoyed all the fun facts. Wait, one more fun fact. Tomorrow is Vicky's birthday.